With CudaSign, paperless e-signing is a no-brainer for any business that requires legally binding signatures fast. That's because CudaSign offers everything you should expect from an electronic signature solution for just $1 per month. CudaSign cuts document turnaround time as much as 90%, thanks in part to its #1 rated mobile app. And CudaSign's secure cloud stores documents for on-demand tracking and retrieval, saving you even more time and money. Don't think twice. Get CudaSign now for just $1 per month. Go to CudaSign.com.
ESPN Radio. This is the Thundering Herd Podcast.
Oh, it's the Herd on ESPN Radio, wherever you may be, however you may be listening. Thanks for making us part of your day, presented by Progressive Insurance. All of our guests via the Subway to Fresh Take Hotline simulcast on ESPNU. What I'm about to say stinks, and I'm not happy about it, but it's true. It's certainly true in my case. Is that sometimes, no matter how hard any of us work, we're limited by our DNA. We're limited by the parents we had. I mean, let's be honest. Environment matters. It does. It matters. Sometimes you just can't overcome what you saw when you were 8 and what you witnessed when you were 8 and the abuse. You can go to therapy, but it's innate, man. It's in you. That's why we should be understanding that not everybody has the same upbringing, right? And it's one of those things. That's why in pro sports, I make swift judgments on certain positions like quarterback. Because unlike you or I can do this for 50 years. Pro athletes by 29 are out of their physical prime. By 34, they're out of the sport. You got to come to the sport as a grown-up. I can't wait for you to grow up. Now, if you're in shipping or if you're in taxidermy or if you're in law, you're going to do that till you're 75. You can kind of screw around in your 20s, get your act together at 38, then from 42 to 62 be a very formidable law partner. Brother, you're out of the leagues in sports by 34. So you got to bring leadership qualities to the table. I don't have time for you to, quote, develop it. When Magic Johnson came into the NBA, I don't know if it was DNA or parenting. That guy was a leader day one. Jabbar, based on his background, was a lone wolf, still is. Magic Johnson's still a leader. Is it because he went to Amazon.com and bought 7 easy steps to management? Just who Magic Johnson is. LinkedIn, Facebook. He's a walking Facebook. He's a walking LinkedIn. To this day, Jabbar is a lone wolf. Magic was the leader of that team, 19 years old, leader of the franchise. No time to develop it. John Wall, grow up. That was always my knock on him. He'll probably grow up at 34, be out of the league. Russell Wilson, Tom Brady, Derek Jeter, John Elway, Magic. They came to the table ready to lead. That's why I think the Houston Rockets are a flawed roster. Josh Smith, Dwight Howard, and James Harden are mega talents. None have leadership qualities. Here's a list of mega talents who lack leadership qualities. Iverson, Marbury, Melo, Dwight, D. Rose, Francis. Have anything in common? No rings. You watch basketball for flash, points. I watch it for leadership. I've been watching this league 45 years. I watch your body language, your temperament when you're on the bench or a bad night, your IQ, your commitment on defense, your communication, your seriousness. You and I have a chance to upgrade our leadership skills. Hard for athletes. They come in young and they're gone early. I remember when I was a kid, I went to something called Boys State. You can look it up. I grew up in Washington State. I went to Boys State. I was like 17, Ellensburg, Washington. And it is basically simulating state and local government. And you could have court proceedings, you enforce laws, you created recreational programs, you constructed like a state government. And what jumped out to me, I didn't have great leadership skills. Today I'm 52, still don't have them. I have some talent. I'm a lot more A-Rod than Jeter. I'm a lot more Jabbar than Magic. But I have certain limitations. But I noticed at Boys State, some of those kids were 16 years old. It was jaw-dropping, engaged, communal, networking, Second day, it was a week long. Second day, they were forming senates. And I was like, I don't have it. I tried. I don't have it. It's not innate. So when I watch James Harden and Josh Smith and Dwight Howard, this league has a history of rewarding titles to talents who can lead, not just talents. It's a cruel, cruel league to Melo and Dwight Howard. They've got all the talent in the world. Chauncey Billups is a leader with less talent. And so in the real world, you can do internships and apprenticeships. You have time to grow. Blow off your 20s. Drink too much until you're 36. You can still be a great chief of staff at Boston General. You can still be a law partner, a successful businessman. You wait to 29 in pro sports, done. Bring it to the table, brah. I don't have time for you to go to Amazon.com and read your 48 books over 7 years. I don't have time. That's my knock on James Harden. In fact, I went. That's why I think it's so ridiculous. LeBron James walked into this league despite a chaotic childhood. That guy's an unbelievable leader. He could be a CEO. The way he networks, builds teams, gets on the phone. Derrick Rose doesn't know those qualities. It's not just on the court, it's off the court. Magic and LeBron are the two greatest leaders I've ever seen in the NBA. Magic to this day gets upset with NBA players who don't come to him for advice. It is who Magic is. He gets upset if Blake Griffin doesn't come and sit down and have lunch. Magic's like, here's what you do, here's what you don't. He's offended. He's the opposite of a lone wolf. He wants to lead the pack. But I went to Forbes.com and I looked up the 10 qualities that make a great leader. And this is why I've never bought into James Harden. Ability to delegate. He doesn't pass much. Communication. Nope. He's quiet. Commitment. Not on defense. Positive attitude. Ever seen him sulk on the bench? Ability to inspire. Not unless he's scoring. 5 of the 10 qualities. Doesn't have it. Going to wait now until he's 36 and gets them? I'm not willing to wait. I'm putting my money on the guys. That's why I say about Chris Paul. He may never get a title. He's got all those things. Not always well-liked. That's part of leadership. Say unpopular things. That's part of leadership. Nobody loved Troy Aikman and Elway. Used to offend teammates, leaders. So when I watch the Houston Rockets, I know he's flashy, but he's not a whole player. If James Harden doesn't shoot particularly well, he doesn't have a good game. I went to a LeBron James game 3 years ago in Miami. He didn't have a particularly great night. When they went to commercial, you didn't see it, but everybody in the arena did. They went to a commercial, and LeBron was having a poor night shooting. Led the huddle, took Mario Chalmers aside, taught him during the timeout. You were watching a Pizza Hut commercial. LeBron was telling Mario what to do. Went over to the bench and then told Norris Cole what he just told Mario Chalmers. Went into the huddle late. He's coaching. That is a holistic player. LeBron has had 3 games in the playoffs where he can't hit the broadside of a barn. But he's had 14 assists, 13 rebounds, and is the leader during the game, during timeouts. All you millennials, you just love the shoes and the sign after a jumper. That doesn't win titles. That's not what wins titles in this league. And I don't have time to wait for you to grow up. You're 6 years left, James, and you're now physically out of your peak. I can wait for a guy in printing to grow up. I can't wait for an NBA player. I mean, even you can still enlist at the Army at 35. You can screw everything up for 15 years. They'll take you at 35. By 45, you could be lieutenant. Doesn't work that way in pro sports. That's why I'm so harsh, so rigid, so mean when I demand you come to the franchise ready to lead. And so few have it. And you really notice it when you watch a Magic, and you watch LeBron, and you watch a Brady, and you watch a Jeter. So few have that.
You're in the Herd, the Thundering Herd podcast.
You know, one of the things I love about the Warriors is I see great leadership in their young players. Klay Thompson's dad was an NBA player. Every game. Steph Curry's dad, NBA player. as a buddy of mine just texted me, they're like Little League dads, totally supportive. They have leadership qualities. That's why I like, it's not just their talent. What I really like about the Warriors, their talent's great. They got leaders all over that roster. Those young guys, Steph Curry's a leader. Klay Thompson's a leader. Steve Kerr is a leader. There's a big difference. I've said this before. Tom Brady's a leader. Aaron Rodgers is a talent. Big difference. Russell Wilson's a leader. Aaron Rodgers is a talent. Derek Jeter is a leader. A-Rod's a talent. Big difference. Andrew Luck's a leader. Elway's a leader. Favre, kind of a talent. Big difference. You can still win, won't win as many. Won't win as many. I mean, if you're 34, you can still enlist in the Army. At 39, you can be a Marine. You can go to the Navy. Can't decide at 30, I want to be an NFL quarterback. So you've got to come into your sports with maturity and the ability to lead other men over the hill. That's why I am so rigid on leadership. If you're doing this pot stirring crap and gang signs, outdone by, see ya, you'll realize at 36 you're an idiot. By that time, you're done as a player. Aaron Rodgers has his thing, and Aaron's a mega talent. I don't consider him a great leader. I consider Russell Wilson less talented, unbelievable leadership qualities. Speaking of leadership qualities, there's a story today where World Cup sponsors like Visa and McDonald's and Coca-Cola are warning FIFA, hey, you need to get your act together or we are out of here. Blah, 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 blah. Let's be honest about major corporations, including this one. It is all about aligning yourself with brands, protecting the brand, patriotic, healthy, family values, blah, 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 blah. Do you really want to get your hands dirty? I think there's a moral obligation for the biggest corporations in America to be disgusted with human rights violations. What is happening in Qatar is a disgusting atrocity in this world. 1,200 people, immigrants to that country, have died. They project 4,000 will. Now, when you build stadiums, they lost a few people in Brazil, 12. When you build a dam, you're going to lose some people. Skyscraper in Chicago, New York, a couple die. That's dangerous work. Nobody's saying you have to have a 12-year infrastructure build and something's not going to happen. They project 4,000 people will die building stadiums in Qatar. 1,200 have already died. So corporations, talk is cheap. If you want to make global radical changes and you deeply care with your billions in profit about human beings, not just profits, pull your money from FIFA if they don't move the 2022 World Cup. Because what is happening in that country is revolting and disgusting. The poorest people are moving to the country in outrageous conditions to feed their families pennies a week, and they're dying. Dad never comes home. It's awful. It's awful. And we need corporations, and they're powerful, and they do amazing things. This company does major sponsorships and doesn't take a lot of credit, and you don't know about a lot of them. And so does Visa, and so does Coke, and so does Pepsi, and so does McDonald's, and so does Wendy's. I'm not saying they're not good partners, but if you really deeply care, and it's not just about your brand and patriotism and selling burgers, you got to get out of Qatar. That is awful. You cannot be linked to that. It's corrupt on a zillion levels. Lewis, you're in the Herd on ESPN Radio, Lewis, and you go ahead.
Hey, Colin, thanks for taking my call. Listen, I love your show. I listen to you every day, man. What do you think about Kobe Bryant? You think he's a leader? Because he kind of did the same thing that Magic did.
No, Kobe's a talent. Now, he was surrounded with Derek Fisher, who's a leader, and Phil Jackson was a leader. And Shaq, by the way, has some really good leadership qualities. He seems goofy. Shaq's got some really good leadership qualities. He really does. Kobe's a talent. Now, I'm not saying talents can't win titles. Like you're so gifted. Kobe Bryant's the second best offensive player in the history of this league, and he also. But by the way, when Kobe has not had another great player, his teams have become selfish, Kobe-centric, and unwatchable. When he gets a leader, Pau Gasol has leadership qualities. Go look at his family. Shaq has leadership qualities. Phil Jackson. Then he can win titles. I'm not saying just, but you know, Lewis, you've worked with guys like this. I don't have management DNA. Vince, my producer, I have a friend, Brian. He lives in the Northwest. He's just a natural leader. He's a little league coach. He runs his country club. Everything. He'll take organizations over. He can deflect heat. He is patient. He's a good listener. He's just like a leader. He's got all these unbelievable leadership qualities. Any group he's in, he just rises. He doesn't seek it. He just has all the skills. I don't have it. Some people have it. Doesn't mean you can't succeed in life. Doesn't mean you can't be. But this NBA historically gives titles to leaders. Tim Duncan. Michael Jordan had great leadership qualities. You know, the difference between Michael and Kobe, they're both mega talents. I always thought Michael had better leadership qualities than Kobe. He was less aloof. I mean, Michael would be on the back of the plane playing cards every night. They'd leave. Michael's back there playing cards, playing golf. Kobe's in his hotel room by himself. You know, the difference between Kobe and Michael is not just talent. Michael had some, and by the way, Michael post-career, he's owned a team, he's built a brand. He's got real leadership qualities. LeBron's amazing. Magic's the best I've ever seen. But a lot of you guys, you get so caught up. You get, and I understand this, the media does this too. Ooh, he can score. Carmelo can score. He's got no leadership qualities. None. Iverson's a great player. He got no leadership qualities. Doesn't even want to go to practice. Doesn't even want to commit on the defensive end or practice. John, you're in the herd on ESPN Radio. Go ahead.
Hey, Colin. Nice to be on your show, but I respectfully disagree with you. And you're wrong about Iverson. He was first team on defense multiple times.
Didn't want to practice, though. Practice was beneath him. So you're telling all the other players, you guys do the dirty work at practice without the glamour. I'm not interested. Not a great leader. That's not what Tom Brady's doing. Tom Brady has won the Patriots' best practice player 6 of the last 8 years. Derek Jeter, every day showed up batting practice. Leadership isn't what you see on TV, and you young guys don't get that. You young guys see on TV, you think leadership is doing the stuff that nobody sees. Harden's not starring, he's on the bench sulking. Cam isn't playing well, he's on the bench sulking. Russell Wilson isn't playing well, he is on the headsets talking to coaches, uplifting his teammates. James Harden doesn't have leadership qualities. He admitted after the game last night he needs to be better at it. He sulks when he doesn't play well. LeBron doesn't play well? Okay. 21 assists, 16 rebounds, coaching off the floor. You young guys, just stop staring at the jumper. Watch a player's body language when he's not playing well. Watch him when that will define leadership. Everybody's happy when their son hits a home run in Little League. When your son strikes out and the ump screws him, what do you do as a dad then? That'll define you as a dad. Everybody's happy when their kid dominates and hits the jumper to win the game. When your kid stinks and the ump stinks and the refs foul him out, what do you do then, Dad? Are you a good dad then? Are you a grown-up then? Are you an adult then? Are you going to throw a hockey stick at the ref and end up on TMZ.com? Leadership isn't defined when times are good. It's defined when times stink. In crisis, teams falling apart. That's when LeBron's great. That's when Harden sulks.
Geico presents Strange Saving Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
I'm hearing a lot of people say, ooh, it's a huge problem for the NBA because the Cavs and Warriors have a 7-day layoff before the NBA Finals. Irrelevant. Super Bowl has 2 weeks off. They get record ratings. The Olympics takes 3 and 4 years off. They get big ratings. The World Cup doesn't arrive for 4 years. The swimsuit issue for Sports Illustrated, once a year. It's the only one anybody buys anymore. If the quality of something is considered high or exceptional, time off is irrelevant. The World Cup, the Olympics, bowl games, they're off. You forget about them for a month. A year, they get huge ratings. Now, if Atlanta and Houston were playing in the finals and there was 10 days off, you'd forget about it. But this is Golden State, Curry, LeBron, Cavs. It's going to get massive numbers. This is the final the NBA wanted. And it just so happens, this is why, a lot of people predicted. I had the Warriors in the final last couple of years. I thought they'd be it. I had them too early a couple of years ago. I thought Chicago would make it this year, and then LeBron would make it for the next 5. It just so happens they went out and got Mozgov, Shumpert, J.R. Smith. They fortified the lineup, and they got real good post-trade. So Cleveland's the best team in the East. It's not even close. It's not even close. Golden State probably won't make 5 or 6 in a row. Durant, Westbrook could get in the way a year. San Antonio always rebuilds. You've got your Portlands and Houstons, which have, they've got parts. So, but, what's the saying? The distance makes the heart grow fonder. With a week off for this NBA Finals, you're going to get hype, build up, promotion. Next Thursday's Game 1 is going to get huge numbers. It'll be the number 1 rated Game 1 of the NBA Finals in a long, long time. Now, if it was baseball, it would hurt them, unless you had like the Yankees in the World Series. But baseball cannot withstand, in the middle of football season in October, a 9-day layoff for the World Series. But with this final, nothing going on in sports really, it will get a huge number. The layoff is irrelevant. Irrelevant. Speaking of irrelevant, what is happening with FIFA is not irrelevant, but it's irrelevant to the sport's popularity. Again, don't necessarily think because the media thinks something is a big story that it connects with the public. The media has always, and it's undeniable, leaned left. What is big to them isn't necessarily big to people to the east of La Cienega Boulevard in Los Angeles or to the west of the Hudson River. What's big in New York and L.A. is not always big, and that's where the media is mostly at, is not always big to the people in the middle of the country. Yes, what's going on in FIFA is disgusting, and it's a mess, and it's sinister. It has no impact on the popularity. It won't hinder it, and it won't help it in America. It's an operational issue. It's an administrative issue. It's investigative. The fans can't play along with that. It's too complex. The same media said Bountygate and the Ray Rice scandal would hurt the NFL. Ratings are up. Fans don't care about operational issues, administrative issues. They want to play fantasy football, and they want to they want to be a pretend general manager. I do topics on this show. Often, can you play along? Is it something you and your wife in your car driving to the show can kind of argue about in your car? That's why I did that Steph Curry's daughter. I'm not a big fan of having kids around working environments, but I knew it was a topic that everybody could play along. A wife doesn't even know sports, she could play along. The husband who loves sports could play along. The kid in the back seat would have an opinion. This FIFA story, it's not going to affect at all the popularity of soccer. If Team USA, if the United States men's national team kicks butt in Copa USA, kicks butt in these tournaments, we're all in. That's what we want. We want our country to win. Oftentimes, scandal helps ratings. Doesn't hurt it, helps it. It's boardroom. It's white-collar crime. Remember, the media told you electric cars are the future. People like SUVs. Bountygate, Ray Rice, league in trouble. People want to play fantasy football and bet it. So this story is very complex. It's investigative. It is an awesome story for people who are journalists working in those New York, L.A. offices. But it is, I tell my wife jokes about this all the time. She said, the media's perception on what women should be and want to be and what they want to really be are two different things. She's like, I like being a mom. I like staying at home. I like my freedom. I like making dinner for the kids. And she goes, if you said that, you're misogynistic. She's like, that's what I want to be. I like my man to do the man stuff, and I like to do that's like, I like that role. I'm really okay with those roles. She goes, but if you say that, whoa, my God, you do realize that's like 80% of people in the country. That's how the family works. Guy does this, woman does that. Well, I got to share it. That's fine if you do it. I'm not against you doing it. But the media is misogynistic. You ever think sometimes moms would rather be at home with their daughters than dealing with sales staffs My wife's more nurturing than I am. She's okay with it. I'm okay with it, So, but, the media's perception is this is the right thing to do. It doesn't mean the fans, the public cares about anything. It really doesn't. This is not going to help soccer. It's not going to hurt soccer. It's administrative, bribes. Where are they coming from? What are the companies? I had Jeremy Schaap on. I was interested. But 90% of fans were like, oh, boy, he's talking about companies I've never even heard of. He's talking about companies I've never even heard of. Is it Marcus? You're on the line. Go ahead.
Marquis.
I'm sorry, bud.
Thank you, Colin. I wanted to know, does leadership determine what position that you play, like quarterback or point guard?
Yes. I mean, you don't have to be a leader at wide receiver because you break the huddle first, and your job is basically get open. You don't need the wide receiver doesn't protect the quarterback. He doesn't block for the tailback. You need to be a leader and a giver at quarterback and left tackle. You just need to be really good. Go be Des Bryant at wide receiver. So a quarterback, the innate skills a quarterback needs is distribution, high IQ, understand complexities, a leader in the locker room. You'll be the highest paid. People will look up. The franchise builds around you. They market. A cornerback gets in trouble, an owner doesn't lose sleep. A quarterback gets in trouble, police involved, it screws up the whole franchise. You have another corner on your roster. You don't have a second Russell Wilson. So, yes, and by the way, in baseball, catchers often become managers and broadcasters because you're handling a pitching staff. So if you look at a lot of the best broadcasters we've ever had in baseball, they're often catchers because think about what a catcher is doing. He's watching the game. He's calling the game. It is an intellectual position. It is an emotional position. Like, think about pitching. When you're a relief pitcher, you just come in and throw gas. You may throw 13 pitches. You don't need an even temperament. When you're in the bullpen, dude, come in, throw seeds, and get people out. But a starting pitcher needs more maturity. He's going to have bad innings. He's not going to get yanked in the first, second, third, or fourth inning because he puts a base runner on. I need an even temperament. Are you an adult, a grown-up? You get frustrated because you put two men on. You can't. So when I'm looking for pitchers, a guy in a bullpen, you're in the eighth inning, you face two batters, walk both, I just pull you. Go throw a tantrum. I don't give a rip. I don't need you to have this kind of big, macro, broad temperament. Closer, you come in, two batters, get them out. Al Roboski's one of the great relievers of all time. He was the Mad Hungarian, was a kook. But generally speaking, I want an even temperament from a starting pitcher because you're going to have to work yourself out of several crises and jams throughout the course of your first 6 2/3. More on James Harden. Bad guy weighing in on the topic right around the corner.
Want more of the Herd? The Thundering Herd Podcast.
I am the first to admit I do play favorites. I like our president over Russia's. Putin, Russian President Vladimir Putin, said the United States is meddling in the FIFA affairs, trying to stop Blatter's re-election. Oh, really? Funny that you and Blatter agreed to have that World Cup in Sochi, which is a hole. But you got the Olympics, probably bribed your way into it. You got a World Cup, probably bribed your way into it. So Putin suddenly is like, Sepp Blatter's one of the all-time great commissioners. This guy's governorship is amazeballs. Yeah, Putin. By the way, he announced this shirtless riding a bear. I always love, like, wackadoo on the message board. I wish we had a guy like Putin running the country. All right, you bet. President shirtless on a bear. Yeehaw! Yeah, I knew this morning when I came in, James Harden last night was awful. Set an NBA record for most playoff turnovers. He was awful. But I'm not one of these, he's good, he's bad, he's good, he's bad. I'm not into him, so I'm not going to go on Twitter and acknowledge, he was good last night. But I didn't, during the game last night, say he's awful, and he was. This postseason really was not an indictment of James Harden. It was an unveiling of what he truly is. When he shoots well, he's really good. When he doesn't have a second gear. He's Carmelo Anthony. When he's shooting well, he's in a good mood. He's doing his stir-the-pot thing. When he doesn't, he sulks, and he's irrelevant. Last night, 2 for 11, 13 turnovers. Awful. Game before, 45 points. Great. Game before that, 3 for 16, 17 points. Awful. Game before that, he was great. 38. Up, down, up, down, up, down. But he's not in the same class of LeBron. When LeBron struggled against Atlanta, he added 14 assists and 12 rebounds. In the conference finals, or in the conference semis against the Clippers, his own coach, Kevin McHale, sat him in the fourth quarter of game, was it 6? Sat him. And against Dallas, he had 2 horrible games to start the series. 5 for 17, couldn't hit a 3. 4 for 11, couldn't hit a 3. So, but the problem with the Carmelos and the James Hardens, if they don't shoot well, they don't dominate in the defensive end. They're not great leaders. They don't become rebounding magnets. So that's why I've always thought this James Harden comparison is so laughable. LeBron was terrible from the field against Chicago in Game 6. He was 7 for 23. But he had 2 blocks, 9 boards, 11 assists, and was a great leader on the floor. In Game 3 against Chicago, he was awful again from the field, 8 for 25. But he had 14 assists, 10 for 11 free throws, and 8 rebounds. Against Atlanta, he was awful in a Game 3 against Atlanta. 14 for 37. LeBron was awful. And then he had 18 rebounds, 13 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks, and was coaching the team on the floor. So this argument that James Harden is in the same stratosphere as a player as LeBron James makes all the media who vote for it look silly. One of them is one of them is a department, one is the company. One of them's Coke, one's the marketing division of Coke. There's a big difference between the company and a division. These playoffs really just unveiled the truth about James Harden. He's not an entire player. He's not a whole player. He is a gifted offensive player. He's a lot like Dominique Wilkins, Carmelo Anthony. He is a gifted, profound Stevie Francis, Stephon Marbury. He's a one-side-of-the-floor guy. But last night he was 2 for 11 with 13 turnovers. He could have been a great defender. No interest. He could have been a great leader. No, I'm not interested. So that's why the argument's silly. It's just. And by the way, here's something else last night that you really see. This was a great example of what good coaching does. And we said this yesterday. Remember we got into this discussion yesterday where in the regular season, you can come into town, teams don't have time to do much prep, and you can drop 35. But in the playoffs, you play the same team 7 times, 6 times, 5 times. You see the same players. You can really move the chess pieces. James Harden shot 59% from the field in the first 2 games. Who guarded him? Klay Thompson. That's funny, though. Then they put Andre Iguodala and Harrison Barnes on him, and he shot 36%. That's the playoffs. So James Harden in the regular season, big points, big points, big points. When you get to the playoffs, and I can see your tape and your weakness, I put a bigger athlete on him, disappears. Remember the last time he was in the finals? Remember that time? Disappeared. So a big difference between being an all-star in the regular season and then the playoffs come. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, these guys, people game planned against them for 15 years. They still dropped 38 and shot 50% in big games. So, all right, let's go to, who do we have here? Is there anybody that's interesting? Gus, I'll try that. Go ahead, Gus.
Yes, I was worrying about little Riley, and maybe those reporters was worrying about, he was bashing that other guy the other week. And she could fall right off of that podium because she's just running around freely. And last night she had the curtains over her face. And, that's kind of dangerous. If anything happened to it, then the whole world will see her fall clean off that podium and hurt herself.
Yeah, but it was really cute, right?
It's cute, yeah. I mean, I don't have a problem with it, but I'm just thinking about those reporters out there probably forgetting what they want to ask because they're so busy worrying about her falling off of there.
Everybody noticed that last night was still cute, but not.
It's cute, yeah.
Not quite as cute as the first time. And when it happens 28 more times, it'll be a little less cute every time. Here was the press conference last night. Yeah, it was adorable last night. Can you imagine me doing a rant and I'm trying to talk during the show and I'm trying to talk about stuff and you can't, you want to ask me a question, you got a little baby in the background. It's just, is it ruining the radio show? You can't hear me? We have a professional working environment. I'm sorry, I've got a baby. Here's a diaper.
I feel best.
Yeah. Okay, it was cute. And last night was a little less cute. Do that about 38 more times. Oh, it's such a human moment. Even human moments get tedious. You know what I mean? It's like anything. Now what it's become a thing. Bring your kid to the podium. It'll make you more human. You can sell more shoes. That's what it's become now. Can you imagine if I was doing a radio show? We're going to talk about the NFL season. We're going to do over-unders right now. I like the Baltimore Ravens. What are you talking about? You can't hear what I'm saying? I'm just talking about a topic here. It's not that it's interrupting at all. It's not a working environment. I'm just doing radio.
I feel best.
All right, okay. All right, it's great. Yeah. It's human. Yeah, humanness. I'm getting tired of you people. Tyrone, you're in the herd on ESPN Radio. Go ahead.
Hey, Colin, I'm convinced, man, if they bottled your personality up and shipped it around the world would be a better place.
Thank you, Tyrone. That is good to hear Tyrone's on board with that.
Dude, I'd love to just have been a third grader with you, man, on recess. I'm fascinated by some of the things you come up with. But I wanted to say the Midwest and the East Coast are happy for this 7-day break. Now we can all get caught up on some sleep. These West Coast games have just been killing my libido, man.
They're brutal. They're brutal.
All right, and I wanted to comment. I agree with you partly on the Derrick Rose thing, but you got to look at like superstars in the NBA, kind of like star quarterbacks. You're gonna have your LeBrons, your Durants, your Steph Currys, that top tier guys, and to try to compare a James Harden or a Derrick Rose to those guys, it just doesn't fit because every city needs somebody, and if you take Harden or Rose off their teams, who are you going to replace them with? Any given night, those guys can be the greatest guys on the court.
Right.
And yes. You got to take that.
Yeah, no, Tyrone, we talked about this. This is a very good point. There aren't a bunch of LeBrons, so you get stuck with what you get stuck with. I'm not saying if I'm Houston, I don't like James Harden. He's what I've got, and he got me to the Western Conference Finals. But I am, as a radio opinion maker, going to tell you you're not going to win titles with that. But I'm not denying he can play. This is where the disconnect between fans and I. Stanzik and I talk about this. I'm not disputing James Harden should be re-signed by Houston because you don't have a LeBron, you don't have a Curry, and you need talent. But what I'm telling you is that's not going to win titles. I'm not telling you he's a bad player, but I'm telling you what I do for a living is observe and discuss and vomit on the air. And what I'm here to tell you is leaders with talent win titles. Talent without leadership, Carmelo, don't, generally.
ESPN Radio, bringing you directly to the biggest events in sports.
Center field, well hit, Hunter back, out of here!
From opening day of baseball,
throw to the plate, safe at the plate!
Right through the World Series.
For the third time in 5 seasons, the San Francisco Giants are the champions of the baseball world.
Whether it's LeBron, Chris Paul, or Kevin Durant, when the NBA tips off, ESPN Radio is right there when a champion is crowned.
We have a new world champion. The San Antonio Spurs are the world champions.
And when the magic of bowl season arrives, ESPN Radio is your home for the new college football playoff.
The college football playoff first national champion, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
The biggest events in sports can be found right here on ESPN Radio.
When I was a young broadcaster, I just didn't want to be one of these guys with a shtick. Like, to me, like, you either did a good radio show or you didn't. And you were a good, like Vin Scully, who I grew up with. Vin Scully was just smart and thoughtful and interesting and told good stories, and he didn't have shticks. You go to Chicago. Chicago's kind of a shtick town, kind of a hokey shtick town, you know. Maybe it's a great city, but the baseball announcers are, you know, Holy Cow and Hawk Harrelson. John Sterling for the Yankees is not considered one of the all-time greats. He's got a bunch of shticks and an A-bomb for A-Rod. That's fine. He's a nice guy. But I just don't think the Bob Costas, Joe Buck, you know, I don't think the people that rise to the highest, Jim Nance, I don't think Mike Tirico needs a shtick. I just think Brent Musburger is really good. But it's funny to get the feedback on people, like what's a shtick and what's not. Like, well, Michael Jordan had his tongue out. That's not a shtick. Okay, Michael Jordan probably wasn't even aware he had his tongue out. It was just out. You know, like when I do a radio show, I don't even think about this. But I've been told I do a couple things I'm not even aware of. But when I do my rants, I start staring at people through the glass. And, like, interns are like, he's staring at me. I'm not even aware of it. But I need to make eye contact when I do my show. And there's 7 or 8 people behind the glass you can't see. So I just get into a rhythm, and I'm staring at people. And often they're like, he's staring at me. I've heard this later from people. I'm not even aware of it. Michael Jordan's not aware of sticking his tongue out. There's a lot of things you do, and they're just idiosyncratic, meaning they're just like habits and hitches. And like I was told once, Joe Morgan didn't even realize he was doing that thing when he went to bat. He didn't even realize he was doing it. Like after a while, it just became the way. Joe Morgan is maybe the best second baseman I've ever seen. He had this idiosyncratic move when he came to the plate, and it was what it was. There's been certain baseball players who have been called the human rain delay. They're just, you ever noticed anybody that's got a facial tic? They don't mean to do it. They're not even aware they do it. My son's got little boys often have it. It takes them a while to grow out of their little facial tics and mannerisms. My son's got a little thing where he tilts his head. I had it when I was a kid. I had a cough, kind of a natural. I would kind of do this inorganic cough, and I grew out of it. That's not a shtick. Michael Jordan's tongue out's not a shtick. It's just it's just something his dad may have done it. Could be generational in the family. A shtick is in the middle of a game, you shoot a jumper and you start doing some sort of mannerism that is not organic. It's here, I'm going to make something up. Or, it's one thing. The other thing is when a basketball announcer says, good or yes, that's not a shtick because the ball goes through the hoop. If you're like good, like Bob's Soda down the street in 3rd and Main, that basket's good. Just like that soda down at Bob's, that's a shtick. So there's a difference, and I think the great players historically have ticks. Peyton Manning may have had a tick. But what do they call it for poker players? A tell? Like in poker, I think they call it a tell. Like certain poker players, they do these weird mannerisms when they get a good hand or a bad hand. They don't want to do that. It's called a tell. And everybody around a poker table is looking for your tell. Does he scratch his forehead when he has a bad hand? They say body language. Sometimes when you're nervous, you touch your face. Like when people are nervous, they get a bad hand, you touch your face. You itch. It's a tell. That's not a shtick. It's just what you do. So I don't think the great ones have like signature things that you just play the game. Derek Jeter. Now again, Derek Jeter had that jump step at the hole at short. If you grounded a ball to Derek Jeter in the hole, Derek had that when he would grab it, take a jump and throw it. That was called a style. It wasn't a shtick. That's what Derek did to create leverage to make that throw. That's not a shtick. Dikembe Mutombo is a shtick. When he wagged the finger, that's a shtick. I'm not a big fan of it. Like Nomar Garciaparra, all that glove stuff. I mean, I just think he got into a habit of doing that and it became a nervous twitch. I don't think Nomar's thinking, it's time for the wacky hand thing. I'm a dove. I'm a deer. He's just moving his hands. We've all got stuff like that. Some guys at the free throw line, Karl Malone, would put his hands around the ball. That's not a shtick. It's a habit to create continuity, to create normalcy, to create a habit. Like free throw shooters, I had a basketball coach that told me this years ago. He goes, you don't want to think too much at the free throw line. You don't want to think a lot. He goes, so create. I told my daughter, I passed it on to my daughter. I said, shoot every free throw the same. So I used to grab the ball, and I thought I'd spin it because I thought somehow it took the sweat off the ball. It was just, they call it psychosomatic or whatever. It's like I would spin the ball, 2 dribbles, shoot. Spin the ball, 2 dribbles, shoot. That is just what I did to create a pattern emotionally in my head where I wasn't thinking about the free throw. You got some nervous energy up there, spin the ball, get it to kind of center, bang, bang, shoot. Kyle Macy used to rub his hands on his socks at Kentucky. Not a shtick. Routine like that to create habit is not a shtick. Darius Miles banging the head's a shtick. James Harden doing that circle thing, that's a shtick. Baseball announcer saying, fly ball to left, open the window, Aunt Betty, here comes the marmalade. That's a shtick. Now, Tom Penn, speaking of the finals, I think it's going to be a really good finals. I don't think it's going to be a sweep. Everybody at this network, now I just looked at the Vegas odds. It says 69% chance the Warriors win. That's reasonable. Golden State favored by 6 in the first game. I'd probably take Cleveland. That's rjbellpregame.com furnishing those odds. I think it's a 6-game series. I really think the key to this series is eventually I don't think Cleveland has enough depth to chase Steph Curry around for 7 games. I think Klay Thompson and Steph Curry, you got to chase those guys around, and Cleveland's not terribly deep without Varejao and Kevin Love. They could really use those 2 bodies. And Kyrie Irving's about 75% physically. So Tom Penn told us he thinks the Warriors, former GM Tom Penn, are clearly favorites.
I see Golden State as a pretty significant favorite. You know, with LeBron, you always have certainly that factor, and he can win everything on his own. But Golden State is just so deep, Colin. They just come at you incessantly, especially at home. You just cannot score with them. I don't think the Cavs can score enough. They don't have enough options.
Yeah, I think Golden State's deeper and healthier, and they've got a better coach. So I think those are 3 things. In the Super Bowl, one of the things I said was, I get Belichick, you get Pete Carroll, I'll take Belichick, and the Patriots are healthier than the Seahawks. I'll take the Patriots. I thought it would be a close game, come down to the last 7-8 minutes. But to me, depth, coaching, health, those are really impactful things. They're both very good teams. And I wouldn't be surprised if they made a 3 or 4 year run where they're in this could be like Celtics Lakers. We could have this matchup 5 or 6 times over the next 8 years because Golden State's really young and LeBron's still got a lot of good years left. Kevin, you're in the herd. Go ahead.
Hey, Colin, thanks for taking my call. So before the playoffs even started, the Cavs were the odds-on favorite, and now they're 2-1 underdogs. And I look at it right now. I say you put Shumpert on Curry, you put LeBron on Klay. I think Thompson is going to shut down Green, and Mozgov is really good. And I don't quite understand how a team can go from the odds-on favorite before the playoffs started to a 2-1 underdog. And I try to consider myself I like to make money off of this stuff, and I'm all in. I don't think I see the Cavs in 7, maybe 6, and I know that the Warriors are really deep and they're good, but Shumpert can keep Curry in check. He's one of maybe 5 players in the league who can. And you put LeBron on Klay, he's not going to do much.
Yeah, but you're going to have LeBron chasing Klay Thompson all over the court, and do you want to exhaust his energy all on the defensive end? Breaking news. Mark Stein discussed this morning. Basically, Tom Thibodeau is not coming back for the Bulls. So the general manager, Gar Forman, announced today Tom Thibodeau will not be retained as the team's head coach. I think he's a pretty good head coach. I really do. I think he's a really good head coach. Good luck upgrading it, coach. I think the issues are personnel. I don't think the issues are. I mean, he was an assistant for 21 years. Boston was never better than when Thibodeau was the defensive-minded assistant coach. I don't know. I don't love the move. Don't love it.
Want more of the herd? The Thundering Herd Podcast.
It's amazing. Tom Thibodeau won 65% of his games. That's with a boatload of injuries and no Derrick Rose for a couple of long stints. So that's he didn't do terrific in the playoffs, but a lot of those losses were to LeBron James. And then some of those losses were probably, I don't have the track record in front of me, to a really good Boston team. I mean, Michael Jordan didn't win the playoffs for years because he had to face a great Celtics team and a great Pistons team. So I don't know. I don't know if you can do better than him. Nick Friedell covers the Bulls, ESPN Chicago. I guess it's not a surprise. When did you really feel, Nick? Like, was there an epiphany or a moment that it was over?
Colin, it's a great question. I think it started, frankly, at the end of last regular season. There was a game in Charlotte that didn't mean much to the Bulls. Tibbs played Joakim Noah 42 minutes on a bad knee, and we found out a couple weeks later that he had to have surgery. Jimmy Butler played 48 minutes in that game that ended up going to overtime. The Bulls lost. And from that point on, between the front office and Tibbs, there was a major chasm. I mean, these guys all want to win games. games, but Tibbs coaches every game like it's his last. And so you push into last off season, and the Bulls made it clear, Garth Foreman and John Paxson, the executives, that Rose, who was coming off knee surgery, and Noah, who was coming off knee surgery as well, were only going to play 32 minutes a game most of the year. And Tibbs didn't like that. And so that hovered over everything the Bulls did throughout the early part of the regular season. And then, as you and I talked about a couple times during the year, I think Jeff Van Gundy's comment, and he's an analyst. Coach Van Gundy has been around a long time, but he's an analyst. He gets paid off for his opinion, but he's also a very close friend of Tibbs and a confidant to him. He went on a national telecast and blasted Bulls management for the way in which they treated Tibbs, and I think that all those different factors, but especially that moment, and that was about the middle of January. From that point on, you realize that behind the scenes, the relationship between Tibbs and the front office was unsalvageable. And Colin, I'd also add this. It wasn't just Tibbs versus Garth Pax this year. More than any other year, the players looked at Tibbs sometimes. While they still respected him and having been around this team for 5 years, I never thought that he lost them completely. They chafed at his style. And 5 years of listening to the same voice and being in practices for an hour and a half, 2 hours, the league had just changed. I mean, this is a league now that you see the Spurs and the Warriors and the Hawks, teams playing 32, 33 minutes a game, players playing 32, 33 minutes a game. Tibbs was old school, like he learned from Van Gundy. These guys are built for 82-game seasons, and I think all these different factors led into what's happened today.
By the way, Scott Skiles going to get the gig?
In Chicago?
Yeah, I mean, I just hear names. Is there a leading guy in the clubhouse?
I think the lead guy is Fred Hoiberg. He
he's
is the Iowa State coach now. He has a close relationship with several people in the Bulls front office, especially Bulls GM Garth Foreman. I think he's the guy that they've targeted, Colin, for a while, and I'd be surprised if he's not the next head coach here. As far as Tibbs goes, I know we've heard some rumblings. Mark Stein's reported about an interest in New Orleans. I know Tibbs loves Anthony Davis, and why shouldn't he? Because he's going to be one of the best players, if not the best player in the league here in the very near future. So I think Tom's going to get whatever job he wants in the next couple of weeks. And if he decides there's another job out there that he wants next year, maybe he decides to wait a little while. But Tibbs loves to coach. Colin, this is this guy's passion.
Sure.
He loves coming to work. He loves sitting in the office breaking down tapes. And that's what makes this thing so fascinating to me, because nobody knew the numbers more than Tom did. Nobody had seen all the studies about resting guys and watched more tape of his players and knew exactly how he wanted to pace a team. It's just that over time, if you're doing that and you're not winning titles, despite all the injuries, at some point, whether it's the players or the front office or both, almost in every case, they start to turn on the coach. And I think that's what has happened here, especially this season and especially in the last few months.
Nick Friedell, good talking to you, bud.
All right, you got to come and see him.
Yeah, I mean, you got to understand the climate. And ideally, he grinds players down. You just the NBA, first of all, it's always been a players' league, even back in the 60s and 70s. It's a players' league. College basketball is a coach's sport. NBA is a players' league. So it's a star league. And don't grind your stars down. Keep your stars happy. That doesn't bother me. It's just what the league is, That's just what it is. 1-888-SAY-ESPN. It's interesting. I don't know if you're going to do much better than Tibbs, though. I mean, Fred Hoiberg's pretty good. I don't know. Would you move from Ames, Iowa to Chicago? I don't know. Tough calling that one. Colin's a jerk. I don't know. Ames, Iowa. It is charming, especially in the dead of winter.
That place is a dump.
Come on now. Not true.
Check out The Herd with Colin Cowherd weekdays from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPNradio.com, and on ESPNU. The Thundering Herd Podcast.